Raven Hill's outskirts were a quiet wasteland of overgrown fields, crooked fences, and roads that had forgotten the warmth of tires. In that unsettling silence stood Blackthorn House, a towering Victorian mansion that, from a distance, looked as though it were leaning forward, listening. Mark, Olivia, Dylan, and Sarah parked their van right at the rusted gate. They weren't explorers by profession, just four college friends who ran a popular live stream channel called Night Seekers, known for their dares in abandoned places. Their audience loved danger, and tonight's dare was the biggest they'd ever been challenged with. "Chat's going wild," Olivia said, pointing at the screen. Comments scrolled rapidly. "That place is cursed. Don't go in. The house is a trap." Mark rolled his eyes. "It's just a building, an old one. Relax." But even he couldn't ignore the sensation crawling under his skin when he looked at the mansion. The tall windows were blacker than night, like open mouths waiting for someone to step inside. Broken shingles hung like jagged teeth from the roof. Ivy wrapped around the walls, almost pulsing in the faint breeze. Dylan adjusted the camera on his shoulder. "Guys, did anyone else see that?" "What?" Sarah asked. He zoomed the camera toward an upper window. "There was someone standing there. I swear I saw movement." The others stared, but the window was empty, lifeless. Then the gate, untouched by any of them, opened just an inch, creaking like a warning cough. "Did that?" began Olivia. "It's the wind," said Mark, though no wind was blowing. Still, they stepped inside. The path to the house was muddy, yet their footsteps made no sound. Even the gravel seemed silent, refusing to crack beneath their shoes. "Why is it so quiet?" Sarah whispered. Mark didn't answer. The quiet wasn't natural. It was the kind of silence that presses on your ears like hands trying to smother you. As they reached the porch, Dylan lifted the camera. "All right, chat, we're right outside Blackthorn House. Legends say it wakes at midnight, whatever that means, and—" A sudden whisper slithered through the microphone. Every viewer heard it. "Come in." Dylan froze. "Please tell me someone said that." "No one said anything," whispered Olivia. The chat exploded. "Run! I heard that too! Get out now!" Sarah stepped back. "Maybe we should—" The front door creaked open slowly, revealing a long, dark hallway inside. Shadows curled at the edges like smoke. "Doors don't open on their own," Sarah said. But Mark, lured by excitement, stepped forward. "That's our invitation." Dylan swallowed. "Guys, the clocks inside, they're all stuck at 11:59. Indeed, every ancient clock on the walls pointed to the same time, seconds before midnight. Olivia's chest tightened. "Mark, I don't like this." "Come on," Mark said, half smiling, half shaking. "We just get some footage and leave." They entered the mansion, and the moment the last of them crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a force that shook the entire house. The live stream glitched for a second. Then the clocks all ticked once. 12:00, midnight. The sound of all the clocks striking midnight echoed through Blackthorn House like a pulse, slow, heavy, and alive. Olivia instinctively grabbed Sarah's arm as the temperature dropped so sharply their breaths turned white in the dark. Dylan checked the stream. "Chat, are you seeing this? The temperature just fell 20 degrees in 5 seconds." But the chat wasn't responding. Hundreds of messages flashed, but none made sense, just long strings of distorted letters, symbols, and static. "Guys," Dylan whispered, I think the stream is corrupted." Mark lifted his flashlight, sweeping the beam across the hallway. The walls were trembling, almost imperceptibly, like something was shifting behind them. Then the lights flickered once, twice. On the third flicker, the hallway seemed to stretch 10 feet longer. "Did the corridor get bigger?" Sarah whispered. No one answered. A deep rumble vibrated through the wooden floorboards, shaking dust loose from the chandelier above. Olivia gasped as shadows began crawling across the walls, not moving with the light, but against it. Mark stepped forward cautiously. "Hello? Anyone there?" He regretted it immediately because the house responded. A voice drifted through the corridor, soft, distant, yet unmistakably familiar. "Dylan." Dylan's eyes widened, his lips parted involuntarily. No, it can't be." The voice came again, clearer this time, as though the speaker stood right behind him. "Dylan, come home." It was his father's voice, the same tone he used when calling Dylan inside on cold winter nights, the same voice Dylan hadn't heard since the accident 5 years ago. "Dad?" Dylan whispered, trembling. Sarah grabbed his sleeve. "Dylan, don't! It's not him!" But the house wasn't done. "Son, I've been waiting for you." Dylan's breath hitched, tears welled in his eyes as he took one step forward. Mark blocked him. "No, listen to me. This is exactly what it wants." Dylan shook his head violently. "You didn't hear it. You don't understand." Suddenly, a door at the end of the hallway swung open with a violent force, smacking against the wall. The room inside was pitch black, but something inside moved, something tall, thin, and wrong. The shadows on the walls stretched toward Dylan like fingers. Olivia screamed, "Don't go in there!" But the voice spoke again, now from inside the room. "Dylan, I'm here." Dylan broke. He shoved Mark aside and sprinted down the hall, straight toward the open room. "No!" Sarah cried. They ran after him, but the house changed instantly. The floorboards twisted, walls extended outward, a staircase melted into the wall. The corridor became a maze, reshaping itself in seconds. The friends skidded to a stop. Dylan had vanished into the darkness. Mark pounded on the shifting wall. "Dylan! Dylan!" No answer. Only breathing. Deep, slow breathing. But it wasn't Dylan's. It came from the house. Olivia backed away, trembling violently. "It knows our names." Sarah nodded numbly. "And it's going to call them one by one." The house seemed to smile in the dark as it whispered again, soft as a cold whisper on skin. "Who's next?" Mark, Olivia, and Sarah stood frozen as the corridor twisted itself shut behind Dylan, sealing him into the living maze of Blackthorn House. The wooden panels shifted like muscles under skin, sealing every path they tried to take. The walls pulsed, expanding and contracting with each breath the house took. "Dylan!" Olivia shouted. Her voice was swallowed instantly, absorbed into the walls like they were hungry for sound. Mark clenched his jaw. "We have to keep moving. If we stay in one place, this place will—" A sudden cracking sound cut him off. The floorboards beneath them rippled like water. When the ripples settled, the hallway had changed. The wallpaper, once a faded floral pattern, was now smeared with handprints. Tiny ones, children's hands, hundreds of them, all dragging downward like they were trying to claw their way out. Sarah clutched her chest, gasping, "This isn't real! This can't be real!" But the house didn't wait for her to recover. A door appeared ahead of them, one that hadn't been there a heartbeat ago. It was carved with strange symbols and glowing faintly red, as if lit from behind by embers. Mark hesitated. "We shouldn't open that." The house whispered through the keyhole, "Sarah." Sarah's face drained of color. "It knows me." The doorknob twisted on its own. A low click. The door creaked open just enough to reveal darkness thicker than tar. Mark grabbed Sarah's arm. "No, we go together." They stepped inside. The temperature dropped instantly. Their breaths fogged the air. The darkness parted reluctantly as Mark raised his flashlight. Inside the room were hundreds of old tape recorders, stacked in crooked piles that reached the ceiling. Dust floated in the air like ash. Every recorder was labeled with a name written in ink that looked disturbingly fresh. Sarah approached the nearest pile and picked one up. The label read, "Sarah Huntley, 1994. A chill ran through her spine. "That's my name and my birth year." Before she could speak again, the recorder clicked on by itself. Sarah's own voice, broken, terrified, pleading, filled the room. "Help me, please, let me out." Sarah dropped the recorder as if it had burned her. Olivia stumbled backward into another stack. 2 more tapes slid out. Mark Teller, 1991. Olivia Park, 1998. They all stared at the tapes in horror. "Why are these here?" Mark whispered. But the house didn't give them time to think. Every tape recorder in the room clicked on simultaneously. Mark's screams, Olivia's crying, Sarah's desperate pleas, hundreds of versions of their voices, layered, distorted, echoing off the walls, voices from futures that had not yet happened. Sarah fell to her knees, hands over her ears. "Make it stop! Please make it stop!" The lights flickered violently. Then a different sound cut through the chaos. Footsteps, slow, dragging. From behind a row of recorders, something thin and pale stepped into the beam of Mark's flashlight. It was Dylan, but his eyes were wide and empty, pupils blown black. His lips trembled as he spoke in a voice that didn't belong to him. "Don't answer your name. Don't answer it, no matter what." Behind him, the darkness shifted, something tall and crooked leaning forward. Mark reached for him, but Dylan jerked back violently. Suddenly, the room door slammed shut, and the house whispered again, "Olivia." The door slammed shut with a force that rattled the entire room. Dust rained from the ceiling as the walls flexed inward, shrinking the space like a tightening fist. Olivia staggered backward, gripping Mark's arm while Sarah trembled with her hands still pressed over her ears. Dylan stood in front of them, swaying like a puppet held by invisible strings. His eyes, once warm, were now empty holes of darkness. His lips parted slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's coming. You have to run." Before Mark could reach him, Dylan was yanked backward into the black behind him, as if the shadows themselves had grown hands. His scream cut off abruptly. Olivia lunged forward. "Dylan!" Mark held her back. "Olivia, no! It wants you to respond!" But the house had already started calling again. "Olivia, Sarah, Mark." This time the voices weren't familiar. They were layered, hundreds of voices at once, deep and shrieking, young and old, whispering and roaring. The floorboards split open, revealing a pit beneath them, filled with writhing, shadowy arms reaching up like starving creatures. Sarah stumbled back, her heel catching on a recorder. "It's trying to pull us in!" Mark dragged both girls toward the far wall, but the room warped again. The door they came through dissolved into the wall, leaving nothing but pulsing dark wood. The ceiling bowed downward as though something massive pressed on it. Olivia squeezed her eyes shut. "We're trapped! It's going to swallow us!" The house answered her. "One stays, two leave." Mark's voice broke. "No! No! You're not choosing any of us!" The shadows surged, grabbing Sarah's ankles. She screamed as she fell forward, clawing at the floor. "Mark, help me!" Mark grabbed her arms, pulling with everything he had. Olivia joined him, sobbing, tugging Sarah upward as the shadows tried tearing her down. The room echoed with Sarah's lung-straining screams, the house's monstrous groans, and the snapping cracks of wood. For a terrifying moment, Sarah's hand slipped. "No!" Olivia cried, but Sarah forced her grip tighter, tears flooding her eyes. "Don't answer it! Don't answer your name! Please!" The house hissed her name again, inches from her ear. "Sarah." Sarah squeezed her eyes shut and didn't respond. The shadows thrashed, then released her in fury. The three collapsed onto the floor, gasping. The house roared, shaking violently as though enraged. The walls split open, exposing a narrow hallway, an exit. "Run!" Mark shouted. They sprinted through the shifting corridor as doors slammed behind them. The house screamed, a deafening, broken, inhuman wail as they reached the foyer. The front door stood open. They burst outside, stumbling into the night air as the mansion's windows went black. The porch groaned behind them like a dying beast. They didn't stop running until they reached the van. But the moment Mark slammed the door shut, his phone buzzed. A new voicemail. The sender's name froze him in place. Dylan. Mark pressed play with shaking hands. A voice, Dylan's voice, spoke softly. "Why did you leave me inside?" A long, slow breath followed. Then the house's whisper. "See you tomorrow night."